Okay, boxing fanatics, welcome to episode 45 of the podcast, and I'm delighted to be joined by Mr. Steve Wellings once again. As we discuss, Leigh Wood's doing the double over Josh Warrington, claiming a unanimous points win last night at Nottingham Arena. I guess settling the feud once and for all. Yeah, producing, I guess, quite a good boxing performance to get the win. I think it was quite plain sailing for the most part. Probably surprisingly plain sailing considering the first fight, was a lot more dramatic. It's fair to say. I remember obviously Wood, Warrington had started really well last time. He was like outboxing Wood and stuff, and he
Mm.
was it looked like he was going to win before Wood, caught him with that shot. Whereas this time it was kind of like, the complete opposite. There was no real drama. It was, I guess, a bit more of a cagey affair in some ways, and yeah, just a lot less dramatic overall, and just a lot more routine than we possibly expected. I don't think there's any secret that these are two guys who are, um, past their best. Both former world champions, both had great careers, but definitely past their best. They're well into getting into their late 30s now. But anyway, Stephen, what did you think of the fight last night?
Yeah, I think he summed it up quite well, to be honest. I mean, I'm looking at Warrington's record now in front of me. He's lost four out of his last five, and he's pretty much a one fight a year guy. I know it's early in 2026 and he might come back again, but I'm seeing Lopez in 22, I'm seeing the first Wood fight in 23, I'm seeing Kakachi 24, Khan in 25, and now, like almost a year later, the Wood rematch in 26. It just kind of feels like he's taking opportunities because he's carrying on. He doesn't really know what to do with himself. He was in tremendous shape, but
Mm,
the body just isn't maybe doing what the mind used to do. And I think when he put his gloves in the ring after that Kakachi fight some 18 months ago, I
mm.
felt that was the end of him. And he's kind of come back trying to rekindle the old magic. And I don't know, I kind of feel like a bit of a grumpy old boxing fan, but I didn't really think this fight was necessary. I thought it was a fight of convenience, like Eddie, or the first fight was controversial, both well known names, both well known fan bases. We're going to pack the place out. Why not stick them together? And I think both of them have just shown signs of aging, Dan, wear and tear. And Warrington just can't pull the trigger anymore, despite a few good moments. I think that the years have just, Father Time doesn't wait for boxers, and Warrington's time is gone.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Father time is undefeated, as they say, and I think you're right. I think you're right. I think Kakachi just took his soul 18 months ago. I mean, you could argue Kakachi took Wood's soul as well. To be
Mm-hmm.
fair, he's beaten both of them in good fashion. But I kind of agree. It was just kind of a cash out. We see these fights all the time, especially with these older dudes, and neither had anywhere to go really. Woods obviously um coming off a loss, and Warrington's lost four times in five. So yeah, I guess it was convenient. It did kind of remind me of like Kell Brook, Amir Khan in a way, because even though it was kind of like that kind of rivalry, and both went towards the tail end, and it's kind of like, let's just put them together.
Mm.
Everyone can make a bit of money off them, and that's basically what it was. It wasn't a city ground like we Wood used to say. He used to love to talk about the city ground, but he's kind of made Nottingham Arena quite a home for himself. From what I saw, it was a decent turnout, decent atmosphere,
Yeah.
and I guess another contribution towards the retirement fund, I guess, at the very least. Were you surprised at how one-sided this fight was at all? Because, like I said before, the first fight was competitive, and I think both of these guys have arguably declined to the same extent. I mean, are you surprised that Warrington couldn't at least make it a bit more competitive, and at least kind of give the judges something more to think about at the final bell?
Yeah, I was surprised really, not necessarily because I thought Warrington has more left in the tank. As I've explained, I don't think he does, but I wasn't sure where Wood was at. You mentioned the Kakachi loss as well, and he's kind of sort of fizzled out a little bit, Wood, over time. So I kind of thought that given their respective positions, it would be a bit closer, but Wood just sort of got on the jab really well, used the southpaw stance quite well, I thought, hit the body really well, and just made Warrington look quite flat footed. And Warrington, throughout his career, he's had times when he's kind of been a little bit busy, but not really doing much. And this was the case as well. Couldn't really get inside and let the shots go. He wasn't even getting close enough to let the good old headbutt go either. Like we've seen in the
Hmm.
past, he's not afraid to drop the nut in. But although Wood's face was looking a bit mangled by the end, but I think he just uses attributes really well. And fair play to him and his team, and fair play to Wood overall as well, Dan, because I remember back in the day, man, when he fought Gavin McDonnell and got stopped for the British title, and people
Hmm.
weren't really expecting him to do much. I know a friend of mine who knows Leigh, and he went on that a mad run and got a lot of good wins. And then, of course, he lost to Jazza Dickens again. He kept rebuilding, and it was that Kanzu fight really that pushed him into the Michael Conlan, and he just rode the crest of a wave. And I think he's 37 now. Josh Warrington's 37 as well, and the two of them just feel like they feel like fighters from a different era. I was talking to a guy
Hmm.
about this the other day. I remember being out in the first Frampton Santa Cruz fight. I went to both of them. The first one was out in New York. Josh
Hmm.
Warrington was actually out there at the time. He wasn't talking about fighting Frampton, although that did come down the line. He was talking about fighting another guy from Northern Ireland called Marco McCulloch, but he was just starting to make his name, Josh. He wasn't a
Hmm.
big puncher at the time. He wasn't particularly well known. Lee Selby was out there as well, supposed to fight on the undercard. His opponent, I think, failed a blood test or something like that. Didn't happen. Selby Warrington eventually got put together. A lot of people thought Selby was going to win that fight, if you remember, back in 2018. And Warrington really just busted him up and got the title, beat Frampton with those frenzied attacks in that fight. I was at that as well in Manchester. I think that was maybe that was 2018. I can't remember the exact dates, but
Hmm.
that's not the same guy now. It's not the guy who's able to just get inside and let those shots go in bunches and combinations. And back to your original point, Wood just managed to take advantage of Warrington's ponderous nature these days and just pick him off, especially to the body. I thought the body shots were really nice, and yeah, it's just caught up on Warrington, and Wood boxed really well actually. Fair play to him and his team. They came off with a nice strategy and it worked.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's funny about I forgot what fire it was. I don't know if it was Lopez or something, but he described Warrington as the dirtiest fighter he's ever faced. Which from some fights, I can definitely see it. I could definitely see it. He does love an elbow, he does love
Yeah.
a headbutt, but we didn't even see that last night. So maybe that's an indication that maybe the fire is going a little bit. And I agree, time flies. Yeah, I actually remember when Warrington actually beat Frampton and Lee Selby. And at the
Mhm.
time, I wasn't really too aware of Warrington. I was thinking, oh, who's this guy who beat Selby and Selby and Frampton? I thought, like, who's this new guy on the block? And it's crazy how the cycles go. 1 minute you're
Yeah.
the new guy on the block and you're up and coming, and then the next minute, you're towards the end, and that's just the case of Warrington.
Because
He's
he
actually,
struggled with Kiko, if you remember as well. You know what I mean? He had his hands full with him, and so we weren't really sure what to expect from Warrington at the time.
yeah, it's true, it's true. Yeah, Kiko Martinez is true. He did struggle in that fight. Um, I mean, he arguably peaked early. I don't know why, I mean, because there's that two wins against Frampton and Selby. That's, I think those have aged quite well. So
Mm.
he arguably peaked actually quite early. But like, yeah,
Or he
like,
just peaked, and that's him now. Just he never got the fight in Vegas. I think that was a shame because he was on that kind of Ricky Hatton kind of trajectory. Obviously, he wasn't going to be as big as Hatton, but it felt like if he got past Lara in 2021, 22, whenever that was, they were going to take him out to Vegas, and it would have been a real experience. And similar to Wood's fight with Conlan, really, it was a sliding doors moment, really losing to Lara because it was just kind of it slid downhill after that.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, he's still a good fan base and stuff. Warrington, he's got
Mm-hmm.
that affiliation of his thing is Leeds, isn't it? Leeds Football Club and
Yeah,
etc.
yeah.
So look, great career, but yeah, when it's your day, it's your day, I suppose, and that was the case. I mean, could Warrington have done anything differently? I mean, I got to say, I was actually surprised. I actually forgot Leigh Wood could fight southpaw, but
Yeah.
I thought the tactics were spot on because, I'm pretty late when it comes to boxing. I don't know the real intricacies, but what I've definitely noticed is that when you've got a pressure fighter like Warrington, they're always going to struggle against like a southpaw who kind of adopts a very sideward stance because obviously the reach it makes it harder for them to close the gap, basically. And I think that Wood done that brilliantly last night. He just used the jab. He went southpaw, and Warrington, yeah, really struggled to come close. It was really hard to see what Warrington could do, to be honest. And when he came close, Lee Wood would unleash a combination. I think Wood is probably more powerful from the orthodox stance, but he looked more skilled from the southpaw stance, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
I mean, apart from, I don't know, ramping up the tempo, I mean, what else could Warrington have done? Was it a case of maybe just, being a bit more dirty, I guess, really just forcing himself on the inside. I mean, could you see anything you could have done differently last night?
No, I don't think so. And I think as well, what was a deterrent is that I've always thought that Wood is a bit of a puncher, which doesn't
Mm,
help matters either. And I think earlier on, when you mentioned about Warrington and about maybe the old fire had gone a little bit in the belly, I kind of saw the fire there. And I
mm,
don't think he was lacking ambition and lacking sort of motivation. I think he just couldn't do the old things that he was able to do in the past and kind of get inside on people. And he's had a lot of hard fights now. And you think about it, a lot of 12 rounders with him not being a puncher. He's been through like camps as well, got himself boiled down to the weight. All these things, the
mm,
miles on the clock, they add up, don't they? They take time. And now he's nearly 40. He's at a low weight.
mm.
And he's trying to get inside and he's just not quick enough anymore. The feet just don't quite move quick enough. And he can't close the distance just quite as quick as he used to. And all those things combined means that by the time he gets in, he's that half step slower. And Wood's already maybe caught him with a jab. And then he second guess himself and Wood's out the way and over the time and he gets tired as the fights go on. I just think it's just, all those things combined to make it that big difficult, I think. And the old Warrington would have got inside, I think, got that head working, got those elbows working, started pounding him to the body on the ropes. But this version is just not quite quick enough of foot and of mind. And he just can't do those old things anymore. And I think Wood just played it beautifully, really. Just turned him, jabbed him, held when he needed to. He took a couple of shots early on as well, Wood, but hit him to the body. I think the body shots worked well for Wood too. And Warrington he just couldn't recall on the old magic that he used to have, really.
No, so he did look like an Asian fighter in there, definitely. Um, Yeah, it's just not the same, just not the same guy Warrington that he used to be. But yeah, like we said, credit to Leigh Wood. I mean, just a brilliant, yeah, but just brilliant tactics. I mean, just he made it look um, very simple. But yeah, I think your point about the weights is a good one because I think when you're fighting at these low weights, it's very artificial. I just feel like a lot of these guys outside of camp, they're just not walking around at 125 pounds, 130 pounds. This is an
Mm,
extremely low weight for
yeah.
for any man to really walk at, and it's yeah, I think it takes its toll over time. I think that's a great point, and I think after making that weight, so I know they've recently both moved up to 130, but a few kilos is it's not gonna make a big difference, is it really?
No.
So yeah, I mean, I think you're right. The maybe 5 years ago, Warrington, the explosiveness would have been there. He would have been able to close the range more, but it was what it was. Um, I feel like we've asked this question for Warrington about the last 5 times in the last 5 fights. But is it finally time for him to retire? As I've said throughout this podcast, Warrington's had a great career. I like to think he's made a good amount of money. He's headlined a lot. He's got a good fan base. Is this the final nail in the coffin? Is it time to finally walk away before, he really, suffers, irreparable damage from the sport?
Yeah, I think so. He turned pro in 2009. He's in his 17th year now. It's a long time, and his dad's been in the corner. He's 35 here. I said he was 37, so he's not quite as old as I thought, but still, he's had a lot of hard fights over time. He's done himself proud. You'd think he's made enough money to look after himself. I don't think he needs to do it necessarily for money. I think it's just what he knows. They get to that age and that stage of their career where boxing's just all he knows, and he's got his dad in the corner and the whole little team and all, and he maybe just needs to pack it up now, I think. And I know at the time they were saying maybe a fight with Conlon or something could be in the offing, but I don't think there's the appetite that for now, especially coming off all these losses and stuff, and there's no title on the line, and it would spark some interest, but he's just not the same guy as he was. And Wood moves on. I'm not sure about world level or stuff, not preempting the questions, but I always thought it was funny about Wood, without going too deep into it. After the Warrington win, he was
Mm,
out for like 18 months or so before the Kakachi fight came along. The Warrington fight was like in 2023, let me see, October 23, and the
mm,
Kakachi fight was May 25. That's a
mm.
big long gap, that is. I'm trying to think as to why, but I thought that was a bit dodgy, a bit funny. Like, I don't know what he was doing during that time, but I mean, it doesn't seem to have harmed him anyway. But it just come into my mind. That was a little aside. But as for Warrington, yeah, man, it's time to go, Dan. I think I don't know what else he's gonna do.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's another case of like we just don't know what his situation is because I don't know. I've read a few of these boxing books now, and it seems like the same kind of theme over and over again. They make money during their careers, and then they splurge it all somewhere, and then all of a sudden they have money. Then they're forced to fight just basically for the money they haven't. I'm not saying Warrington's done that. I'm just hypothesizing that's what happens to a lot of these boxers. They don't have an after plan. They just see it so many times. They just don't know what to do with themselves. Whether it's I was reading Sugar Ray Leonard's autobiography recently, and he said it wasn't even about the money. He just loved fighting, and
Yeah.
maybe that's just the case of Warrington. He loves the fans. He loves coming out to the Leeds chants and wherever else. He loves the adulation, and it's difficult to put his gloves down. But actually, I don't know. I kind of like that fight. I mean, if Warrington does want to continue, I wouldn't mind the Conlon fight actually. I think that makes sense. They're both guys who have sustained losses. I'm surprised Conlon's still going, to be honest, after some of the loss he's taken. So,
Mm.
that's a potential one. We mentioned Leigh Wood, yeah. It sounds like he kind of flirted with retirement during that period. Maybe he had that, maybe he was thinking about it during that time, because 18 months out of the ring is a long time, and maybe he was thinking, yeah, let's call it. But then, I think that was on a Saudi card, wasn't it, when he got the offer of the Kakachi fight? So he thought, okay, another big payday, so I'll come out for this one. I don't know. It's all speculation. If Leigh Wood does want to continue, I know you touched on it there, but I mean, with this new South, let's say he uses this Southpaw, I don't know, more risk averse stance. Can he continue Leigh Wood and keep competing at, I don't know, a more of an elite level? I mean, I'm just thinking yeah, is this a new version of Leigh Wood we can see? This kind of more of a Southpaw stance, more risk averse version.
Yeah, to a degree, I think so. That he could use this to sort of elongate his career a little bit, but I think once he reaches a level now, I think he's hit his peak and he's sort of sliding down as well. Now, that's not to say he won't be able to have some good nights at a certain level, but I think as far as the top guys are concerned, he might come in as a B side, sort of the way he used to be, as of like being. Well, he is a big headliner and stuff, and there is always that potential. Now he's beaten Warrington in the rematch, but I think he's got one last run left in him. And I wouldn't be surprised if they don't try and make the Conlan rematch for him, actually, funnily enough, because especially after the way the first fight went, and if Conlan wins his fight next month in Belfast, as I expect him to do, I think that's something they could make between the two of them. And then if Conlan were to beat him, obviously he'd be going back on for another crack at world honours. And I suppose Wood would think the same if he got the win as well. But I think, yeah, he can still make it as a name, as a ticket seller, etc. But I think the run will be short and sharp this time whenever he comes of someone at a certain level, Southpaw or not. I think I think he'll be over and he will retire.
It's funny how these fights keep getting recycled, but the Wood Conlon fight was a great one. I mean, that was possibly one of the best British fights we've seen in recent years.
Yeah.
Conlon winning every round, such a dramatic finish, one of the most brutal knockouts I think I've ever seen. Conlon falling out of the ring, and yeah, Conlon's kind of making some sort of a comeback. So yeah, it's another fight I could actually see happening, to be fair. But I guess the point is now, it's like it's not even like it's just almost it's just about like constant cash outs, I suppose. Like all these domestic fights. I guess that's it. I mean, again, I don't know what Leigh Wood's situation outside the ring is, but it seems just that way. Just it's almost like push the body as far as it can go to just make as much money as you can before you leave the sport. And maybe if you can mitigate the amount of damage you take, then I don't know, maybe that is the way to go. If you want to, I don't know, set yourself from the sport or whatever. Would you, if Wood was to continue, would you back him against any of the world champions? Obviously, you've got Emmanuel Navarrete, Eduardo Nunes, Shaki Foster, and then you've got Jazza Dickens, which I find interesting. Jazza Dickens actually beating Woods many years ago. That's really interesting to face Anthony Kakachi next month. I mean, we know Wood lost. I would assume Kakachi would beat him again. To be honest, I don't see him beating Kakachi. But
Mm.
any of the other guys, does Wood have any other chance against the other world champions?
I think he always got a chance. I wouldn't say oh he's got no chance at all, but I don't think I would back him against any of them. Shaki Foster's very, very cute, very good boxer. Navarrete's fighting Nunes. That's going to be a war. I think they'd be very tough to beat those two guys because Wood takes a lot of shots as well. And the likes of Navarrete he punches really, really hard. Kakachi, as you say, is probably going to beat Jazza Dickens.
Mm.
And then he's already beaten Leigh Wood. So is there any appetite for that rematch? Not, I wouldn't necessarily say. So it's hard to see where they would match him. Like I was, not that I would like to see Wood fight him or Lopez again, or I don't think Lopez should even be fighting, but I think it's worth mentioning that Luis Alberto Lopez is still going, even though he had the brain bleed against Angelo Leo. I think he's had a couple of fights in Mexico, and he
Oh,
still fancies himself as a contender. I only mention that because obviously he fought Warrington, he fought Conlon and knocked him out. I was at that fight, and so he's relevant in this conversation with the round robins and all. But they'd never sanction him on British soil. But I think it's just relevant to mention him because he was obviously a sort of contemporary of these guys. But the fact that he's still boxing and all and trying to get back to world level, I think is just terrible. But I mean, you see guys like Oscar Valdez is in the rankings as well, and there's not many names at that weight. Eduardo Hernandez against Leigh Wood would be a good, exciting fight. I think there's the potential for plenty of exciting fights, but would just be taking another beating. And you mentioned it before as well about the money. I think it's exactly right. They're just saying, you know what, this is our one career, this is our one opportunity now to make as much money as we can and really get out in a good financial solvent position. So I don't think the likes of Wood and Warrington need the money. I'm sure they're well invested from what I hear, and they're not fighting like the Leonards or the Matthew Saad Mohammeds and all that type of way that they're desperate for paydays. They're just saying this is it now. I ain't going to get any younger. Let's just cash myself out. So I think Wood will be good for a real good barnstormer against somebody, but I wouldn't necessarily pick him to come out the right side of it.
no, I agree. I can't see him beating any of the champions. To be honest, I think it's just a tough ask. He's past his best.
Mm.
I'm sorry to hear about Luis Alberto Lopez. I didn't actually hear that. So the brain bleed. I mean, that's a shame. I mean, I actually remember Lopez when he beat Warrington. I think he really impressed me. He was at one point I thought he was going to be the man at the weight. Just goes to show how things can change again. And yeah, I'm sorry to hear these continuing on. I recommend if anyone listening the book Death of a Boxer that goes into the details of how dangerous the sport can be, and
Yeah.
I guess the stuff we don't think about as fans. Obviously, we would just want to watch it for entertainment and stuff. So definitely recommend that. That's a serious situation. Sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
But yeah, exactly how you summed it up. They're just cashing out and they're just trying to get as much money as they can, really. And I just hope it doesn't backfire. I just want to touch on, I guess, a kind of a big topic this week. It kind of relates to Wood and Warrington because, correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, I think these are two guys who've actually left Matchroom and then have come back. I think they've gone on other promotional outfits, they've returned. And obviously this week we had the Conor Ben leaving Matchroom thing. I just think because it was such a big topic, it somewhat relates. Um, oh, what's been your thoughts on the Conor Ben saga? Yeah, dropping that bombshell and leaving Matchroom to join Zuffa Boxing for a one fight deal, it seems.
Yeah, I think so. Boxing's a funny old sport. I wouldn't write off Ben going back to Matchroom at some point, despite what they've all been saying to each other. Yeah, I don't. It's not surprising me, to be honest with you. I kind of realised, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, that this was his kind of character and stuff. And at the same time, as people have said, it's a short career. You got to make the most money you can. And Zuffa are offering him absolutely insane money. I mean, let's be frank about it. He was at ringside again last night for the Barrios Garcia fight. Shakur Stevenson called him into the ring after he beat Teofimo Lopez. He's managed to grift and graft his way into the conversation while he's not on the level of any of these guys. I mean, let's be honest, and when he was at the level and when he was knocking people out, I mean, it's plain to see there was two adverse findings, and Matchroom absolutely went to bat for him and protect to the nth degree. I know they're all using different language now that he's left. We had the 300-page dossier and all that never saw the light of day. And at the end of the day, he was caught, he was banned, and he served his sentence no matter what he says. And Matchroom stuck by him at the time. So I suppose from that point of view, a moral point of view, he has sort of done the dirty on them a little bit. And Zuffa, I don't know what their game is. I think they're having a fight in the UK for him, the one fight deal. And then I don't know who they're going to put him in against. I don't know which direction they're going to match him. The Zuffa thing's very interesting because Eddie and Frank and all them were caught in Turkey Al Sheikh early in their career, and he's just cut them all off at the knees, basically. The same with the sanctioning bodies as well. He's brought everybody together. They're all under the same roof as well, which is all weird, as you know yourself. You got the Ring
Mhm.
magazine promoting all this. Turkey's got shares in DAZN. He's also in with Dana White and Zuffa Boxing. He's got his finger in all these pies. The sport's just bonkers. Like, I mean, so who's Conor Ben even signed with at the end of the day? But back to my original point, he's nowhere near as good as his dad. He's nowhere near on the level of these guys. He's getting paid absolutely insane money off the back of his name and a couple of sort of misfits kind of fights against Chris Eubank Jr. And his stock was at its absolute highest after he beat Eubank. So fair play, I suppose Zuffa identified that and picked him off. But yeah, long story short, it's not a good look. He's done the dirt on Matchroom. Eddie's done that on guys before. They went to bat for him. Conor Ben's turned around and says, I'm taking the payday. They might all be friends at their end of the career again. I can see both sides. I've got no sympathy for any of them, Dan, to be honest with you, man. It's a sport of snakes, isn't
Wow, fair enough.
it?
Can't really beat that. I mean, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's like that old saying, if you if you want loyalty, get a dog, I suppose. I mean, like you say, they've all done dirty on each other, and it really is like WWE sometimes. It really just gives me this vibe, like turning heel, and then I mean, Conor Ben is eternal heel, to be honest, at the moment. I can't see him ever turning the good side. But it's a good point. Like it's because even the broadcast situation is just so weird because the zone is obviously trying to be the number one boxing broadcaster, but then you got Netflix coming in, and then you got Paramount Plus for Zupa Boxing. It is actually hilarious, to be honest. I don't know what to think actually. Sometimes it's a bit of a joke. I mean. And yeah, I remember with Matchroom, I remember like Kell Brook, for example. Like Kell Brook was like, one of Eddie Hearn's like early stars, and he was one of Eddie Hearn's like first big names. And then I remember
Mm.
seeing like Kell Brook say that, Eddie doesn't really return his calls anymore, doesn't really call him anymore. Um, I mean, yeah, to say to say they're all snakes, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's business, isn't it? I mean, look, the way I see it is like it's like in any field. You can even see this in football. If someone, any business really, if someone stops performing, you kind of get your job is at risk.
Yeah.
Whatever way you want to swing it, and that goes in boxing, that goes in like a normal desk job, whatever. Business is business. I think what surprised me was just that I thought Conor Ben was kind of I don't know, I just thought he was synonymous with Matchroom. He's trained by Tony
Yes.
Sims, who's like Tony Sims is like meant to be the Matchroom trainer and all that. So I thought he was always going to be with Matchroom. I thought he had a close relationship with Eddie Hearn, basically. That's what I kind of thought. But evidently, no, it was just a business relationship. But like you said, look, Wood and Warrington, they've gone away before, come back to Hearn. We've had people like Amir Khan in the past, slate off Hearn and work with him. Chris Eubank Jr.'s slated off Hearn, but worked with him in the past, come back to him. It's a mess. Anything's possible. But look, I'm glad we touched on that. It is what
I
it
think
is.
I think as well, just under the zone while it's in my mind, they kind of paint themselves as the powerhouse of boxing, but they've kind of never really it's always been like a channel of convenience. Like people go elsewhere. Like Fury's fighting Makhmudov on Netflix. Anthony Joshua, one of the biggest stars of the zone and Eddie Hearn stable, supposedly, fought
Mm,
Jake Paul last time on Netflix. Canelo, Crawford on Netflix. And they kind of come back to zone when it's convenient. Like when Jake Paul was on his big massive run, I think he fought Tommy Fury, and it was like he had a few fights on Showtime, and then as
mm,
soon as he lost to Tommy Fury, he was back on the zone again. It's like the sort of channel of convenience. They've never really had that. They've never been that powerhouse. They had all these guys under their roof, and they struggled to make Canelo Golovkin for so long. I think it was Canelo Golovkin or what. There's so many fights. You're thinking, right? Eddie's under the zone. Oscar De La Hoya's under the zone. We should be able
mm,
to have all these fights now, and it's never really materialized. Like Eddie re-signed with the zone recently. His biggest fighter, Joshua, was on Netflix. Eddie's front and center of the poster for the re-sign announcement. It wasn't a fighter at the front of that poster. It was Eddie Hearn re-signed for 5 years. Eddie's not the fighter. Why is he front and center of the poster? Is he the biggest star? Is he the zone's biggest star? I think he might be. Seriously though, Conor Ben was on the photo. He's not even on the zone anymore. Who have they got? What are they making? You know, I don't know.
No, it's a great point to be fair. And this new subscription, this like I just don't want to
Can you
pay
even
for it.
understand it? People boxing fans say to me they can't understand it. You sign up for it, it's like a mortgage, man. You need to be in it for life. You can't get out of it again.
I've heard that, to be fair. I've heard that. It's terrible. It's terrible. I think it's better if a broadcaster doesn't monopolize, to be fair, overall, because I think as boxing fans, because most people have Netflix, don't they? So,
Mm.
you know, um, that probably works better for all boxing fans. But Steve, I'm going to call it there because we're running out of time.
Yep.
But thanks a lot to Steve again for joining me. And guys, if you like this episode, please like, comment, and subscribe. And yeah, let us know your thoughts on Wood Warrington 2 last night. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll catch you again soon. Cheers.